Hi, y'all, and welcome to the recap of day 5 of Donna Adelson's trial. She's on trial for murder in the case of the murder of Dan Markel. And we listened all day long to various recordings. After the state got permission to do a wiretap, and they were listening to all the phone calls and conversations between the numerous people they say are involved in the murder of Dan Markel, they did something called the bump. Somebody went up to Donna on the street pretending to be a gang member, handed her a piece of paper. It was a copy of an article about Dan Markel's murder and had a number, $5,000 written on it, and a phone number. And so this person said to Donna, you've taken care of Katie. Katie, I'm saying it funny, saying you've taken care of Katie and you've taken care of, I forget which one is Tato and which one is Tuto. But anyway, you've taken care of Sigfredo and Katie, but you've left out Louis Rivera, and you need to take care of Louis just like you did of Katie and of her family. And so this then set off a bump. What I had not really realized, even from Charlie's trial, there wasn't just one bump, there were 4. And each time law enforcement followed what happened, and they are completely correct. They have said from the beginning that what happens is you have Donna Adelson get the message. She calls Charlie. Charlie calls Katie. Katie calls Sigfredo. And that happened each and every time. And then Sigfredo would call Katie, and Katie would call Charlie, and Charlie would call Donna. And it would go just like that each and every time, all through all 4 bumps. Sometimes there'd be more than one call between some of the people, but it was over and over again. We saw it run right through that exact channel up and that exact channel down. So we started off the day actually with talking about a discovery violation, which was kind of ironic because this is aimed at the state. Up until now, the judge has been pretty hard on the defense for not having done its objections to the exhibits in advance. But now suddenly the state wants to submit some new evidence that apparently the defense doesn't have. And they're going to hear some about that tomorrow. The defense needed a chance to look at it and may not have objection to it. One is a clarified version of a jail call. So they took one of the calls, I assume, between Donna and Charlie, and they enhanced it, clarified it so it would be easier to hear. There were also some photos and a 14-minute call, and I wasn't sure if that was an overlap with the jail call, but those will be discussed. There hasn't been a firm ruling on it yet. The judge did feel like there would be no prejudicial effect from the jail call, and so he's probably going to allow the enhanced version of that in. The defense had already seen the regular version, so it seemed fairly safe to allow that. So Detective Sanford was on the stand all day long. It was a really long day for Detective Stanford. And they started out with the wiretap, started out just proving some of the basic facts around what they say is Donna's enmeshment in the lives of Charlie and particularly of Wendi, because that would be some of the motive for her to go out and make sure that Wendi brought her kids down to South Florida and that they did whatever it took to make sure Wendi was allowed to do that. Dan Markel, the victim, was in the way of that because he had said no to letting Wendi move down to South Florida. And he had even filed a motion to keep Donna from having the visitation with the children, unsupervised visitation. So we heard that now infamous recording, terrible recording, even in the enhanced version from the Dolce Vita restaurant. What the state did so much more effectively, I think, than last time, on the screen while they were playing this video, they put a transcript beside it so that you could understand what was being said. That really helped, and that's what we read, because what I read aloud, because it was too difficult to understand. Very garbled recording, even in the ultimately enhanced version. And I must say, there was another witness who took the stand about the enhancement, and I'm pretty sure that was yesterday, but I think Sanford was on all day. So in the Dolce Vita restaurant, Charlie talks to Katie McManua. Now, there's been the bump, and Donna and Charlie had met privately. They talked on the phone in some code. They wouldn't really say anything. And then Charlie drove down and met with her in person. And They met in an area where we saw a photograph of them, but it was so far away and it was in a spot where they could not approach them without being kind of obvious. So they were not able to get a recording of that. So the first real response to the bump, other than the cryptic call between Charlie and Donna, was the restaurant, because Charlie calls up Katie and says, "We need to meet," and goes and meets her at this Dolce Vita restaurant. In it, he says all kinds of things that really damn him. And even though he thinks he's being really clever and using a lot of code, he is really not. And it is really pretty apparent what he's saying as he talks to Katie. And he also says very clearly, multiple times, that he thinks it's one of two ways, one of two things. And by that he means this is either an extortion from gang members who really are trying to get money for Luis Rivera or his family, or at least have found out about this and have realized it's a way to get money. That appears to be what the family is most afraid of. They are really worried that it's actually gang members. But what Charlie is just sure it is just law enforcement. He is not really worried about that. In his view, as long as it's just law enforcement, fine. Because what that means is he's not going to have to be afraid that they know anything. The only reason he figures they'd be doing this is if they didn't have enough evidence to charge him or anyone else. So he seems to feel like it's pretty safe. He keeps saying it would be great. He wants it to be. He's 100% sure it's okay, and implying because it's law enforcement. And Charlie thinks Sigfredo would be happy, he says in this conversation at Dolce Vita, that he's paying Katie. That does two things. First of all, it confirms that Charlie is paying Katie and suggests there's something wrong with it. And Sigfredo, who would be one of the people who knew about the murder, wouldn't do anything to get back at Charlie because Charlie's still paying money to Katie, suggesting the reason for all of that is continued payoff for the murder. So Sigfredo ought to be happy. So who is this who's coming after them? It doesn't seem like it could be a gang member, is sort of the thinking. So then, sure enough, Charlie calls, now that he's met with Katie, he calls Donna, uses one of many, many codes he uses, says that he met with a friend and he helped her with relationship advice. And Donna, oh, okay, yes, relationship advice. Then he talks to her more than once that day or evening and says, "I would worry about absolutely nothing. I'm telling you." And Donna says, "We don't know that." And Charlie says, "It does him no good. It's not like you threatened or hurt anybody." And he says immortal words from Charlie, "It could be a lot worse." Or could it be, now that Charlie is spending life plus 30 in prison, or is that Katie? Anyway, life in prison. I'm not sure. It could be a lot worse. So at that point, we also had a phone call between Sigfredo Garcia and Katie. Now, all of this, Sigfredo Garcia was one of the hitmen. He had been in a relationship with Katie for many years during the period when the murder was ordered by Charlie, according to both the jury that convicted him and the prosecution. Charlie was dating Katie. So, but now Katie was back with Sigfredo Garcia. And she is now that she knows about this phone call and the phone number and the $5,000, she is trying to get Sigfredo to make a call to that phone number to find out what is going on. Who is this? And Sigfredo says no. They've just had a really very bitter sort of argument. We heard part of that. And now, but she wants him to make this call and he says no. Then she calls him again just a little while later. It's a calmer call this time. She's referencing the phone number by trying to refer to yet another code. This time she's talking about the price of the kids' back to school clothing. And Sigfredo Garcia does not get it. He's like, you need more money for the kids' clothes? Have we not bought enough? And he's very confused. But she's trying to give him the phone number or refer to it. And once again, she's trying to say she wants him to call. So Charlie and Katie talk again, because Katie talked to Sigfredo. Katie talks to Charlie, and they discuss this time yet another code, investing in real estate and property, and they talk all around it, but they're talking about this investing. And then Charlie calls Donna, sure enough, and says, the police are out, be careful, perhaps referring to the idea, again, a code, that the police are the ones who did this wiretap and have done this bomb. It's nothing to be worried about. It's only the police. It's not a gang member. There's also confusing reference to Macy's and a vacuum. I never was clear whether that was code or what it meant, but maybe that was code, or maybe they bought a vacuum and needed to return it to Macy's. I don't know. They also put up and played the recording of the phone call of a tap that was done, and someone went. Charlie was meeting with his dad, Harvey, and it appeared that what Charlie was going to do was explain to him what was happening. Wasn't clear whether Harvey knew about everything in advance, but everybody was worried about telling Harvey. At least Donna and Charlie were. So Charlie and Harvey met at a sushi restaurant. Now, we know from some transcripts from last time that Charlie and Harvey realized at some point really quickly that the person next to them was trying to record them. He put a big bag on the counter right there on the bar, right between whoever it was and Harvey, and they weren't having it. They weren't talking. It was mostly a completely silent meal. They said a few things, but they had figured out that they were being listened to. And then, so this really that didn't do it, right? That wasn't enough. So law enforcement went a step further with a bump letter. And this letter was to Donna again. And they said, look, my phone isn't ringing. So apparently you don't care about Tato, which is Luis Rivera. He knows he's effed, as so are you, said this letter. Well, you can, of course, imagine what happens. And we'll skip to the Charlie call to Katie. Well, even this happens first. He says, my parents, I'm supposed to talk to them. They want, and then I need to talk to you. I'm here with my parents. I'm going to be talking to them privately, and then I want to talk to you. Let's meet. So 30 minutes later, Charlie and Katie meet at a place called Monty's. And then afterwards, Charlie calls his mother back and says, okay, I met with, he's been at Monty's. He just says, and he's talking to Harvey and Donna. They're at Wendi's house with her children. They're babysitting. Wendi is out. And one thing that is completely clear is they do not want Wendi to know. So Charlie says, I'm going to come by. Y'all come down and I'll meet with you. And then everybody's like, don't tell Wendi. We got to make sure Wendi doesn't know you're here, doesn't know we're talking to you. They are very adamant that Wendi can't know. So although there is much speculation about Wendi's involvement, it isn't clear at this point. What is clear, let me put it that way, is she doesn't know about the bump. She does seem to be insulated from the bump. Does that mean she had nothing to do with what's led up to this? We don't know. They seem to talk about they don't want to upset Wendi. We don't really know the full meaning behind it. So then we had one extra phone call between Charlie and his then girlfriend, June Umchinda. And Charlie said he was at the office. This was not true. Charlie told her that the thing that had happened at work was a bigger deal than he thought it would be, which apparently refers to this whole wiretap thing now that they have a second letter come in. Garcia and Katie talked that same night, but they're still kind of arguing. Not really much happens in that. So she texts him a little bit later, and she says, I need to talk to you about something else, because they just got in an argument when he talked. And he gave her the old whatever, and they didn't really talk that we know about. So Charlie says, once I get this letter, he's talking to his mother, and he is just absolutely convinced that this has to be a woman. And the reason he's convinced about this, and therefore would be less dangerous, I guess, was because women always say to Charlie, You don't care. And this person started with the letter, you don't care. He's like, well, that's what women say to me all the time. So surely this must be a woman. That's apparently what all women do. So there was more code in here about the company fixing bridges quickly. To be honest, I wasn't clear if the company was the government fixing bridges quickly or but it was clearly code for this whole extortion thing. What I think they meant was that if this was really the some kind of gang thing, they would have moved fast. They wouldn't be like, hey, I'm sitting around waiting for you to do something. There would be a pay $5,000. You got 48 hours and let's get this thing done. And I think that's what they meant by company fixing the bridges quickly. So Charlie keeps telling Donna, this is not how extortion is done. Charlie implies he has this vast history with extortion. Now, you might think that would be a negative. That would really not be what he would want. But actually, I will say this, that fits with the theory he presented at his trial. Remember, he said at his trial that the reason he was involved at all was that two hitmen randomly went up to Tallahassee, killed Dan Markel. I guess random wouldn't be the right word, but without his knowledge, killed Dan Markel and then came back and through Katie used that to extort him to say, yeah, we want cash because we did you this favor of killing somebody you don't like, and we're going to set you up for this if you don't do that. So Charlie's saying now this is not how extortion is done. I know. And Katie and Charlie talk. Then Charlie's talked to Donna. Now Charlie's going to talk to Katie, and she wants the number. And again, they're using real estate as their code language in this. So then Katie wants the number. Charlie calls Donna to get the number. She doesn't have it. Charlie tells Katie, okay, I don't have it. We'll have to go get it because Donna has given him the slip of paper the man handed her. So Charlie tells Katie, I don't have it. Katie apparently manages to get the number at some point, and then Katie gives the number to Sigfredo. Now, as of now, the witness points out, absolutely no one has called the number. So there's all this back and forth, and nobody is calling. But then they kept trying all day to play that Matsuri, which is the Japanese restaurant where they were having sushi. They tried to play that. They finally got it a little better in the afternoon, but we kept hearing little bits of it. So following this, Charlie calls Katie, or I don't know, somehow Charlie and Katie are talking. I can't tell you who called whom, but Charlie said that he thought when it must have been Charlie. When he called, Katie's secretary answered, and he thought it was Katie because her voice was just like Katie's, and he thought Katie was talking to him in code, and that because the woman said Katie's in the bathroom, and he thought that was code, and he was like, "Well, I want the problem flushed. Has the problem been flushed?" And then Charlie also, in the course of this call, offers Katie a gift card to use at any hotel and a tree for her house, a bonsai tree. And a couple of times they refer to this tree. So is that more code, or is it just a valuable bonsai, or is it a money tree? I never did figure that out. But yet another code that was used over the course of this. All right. And one of the points that Charlie makes is that this just can't possibly be a real extortion, because if it was somebody other than the government, they would take real steps to disguise themselves. They'd be wearing an Abraham Lincoln beard, he suggests, or they would be wearing a hat, a big floppy hat and sunglasses. And this guy just walked up to Donna on the street with no disguise at all, especially ironic since he actually is an agent who is now not showing his face because he doesn't want to be known. So Sigfredo says he called the number, and Katie says she called the number. So everyone is claiming to have called the number, but as of yet, still no one has called the number. So then bump number 3 happens. And this is where the same person calls the Adelson Institute and asks for Donna and leaves a message that's very important, and that it involves the paperwork. So the usual happens. Donna calls Charlie. Charlie calls Katie, leaves a message, tries her twice more. She finally calls Charlie back. And the judge at this point remarks to people that there should be no facial expressions. So I don't know if people were reacting to this. Frankly, it was almost comical. Some of the exchanges between Charlie and Katie in particular were just wild and really hard to follow with this crazy code. So after lunch, Detective Sanford, poor man, still on the stand, and Charlie calls Donna and wants to know, okay, was there caller ID with that? Because Katie says she doesn't have the number, which is totally false. We heard the call where Charlie gave her the number. And so Donna says, yeah, we don't have caller ID. So no, we don't have that at the office. So Charlie calls Katie, tells her, okay, we don't have caller ID. And she is mad. I mean, the entire phone call was like beep, the beep, a, the beep, 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 beep. She was really angry in the call right before this and this one. Now, the judge, for the first time here, and it happened 3 times today, I believe, the judge instructed Donna to wear her headphones, her earphones, so she could hear the testimony. And it kept happening. She kept taking them off, and he would warn her, you need to put that on so you can hear this. You need to put that on so you can hear this. It was very unusual. I am not familiar with the judge doing that. Like let's say a defendant were to be really bored and stare out the window, it's not normal for the judge to say, hey, pay attention to this. But so something that's going on here, and I don't fully understand it, but the judge he must have said this several times to the counsel. That's my guess, because he has not normally gone straight in front of the jury and said something. So he must have said something and then said, I'm going to start calling this out if it doesn't happen. And he did. So Charlie and Katie talk, and then Charlie and Donna talk, and Donna says basically, without using the letters, it's the FBI, it's the government, and they're just fishing. We don't have to worry. They got nothing. At this point, I say the patents, that makes no sense. Extort Charlie all the time, money back. Oh, Charlie starts talking about, well, this is not how an extortion works. This is not how the whole thing works. And Charlie says that Wendi, he does know, this is really odd. Why are they not going to Wendi? And he says, Wendi would be the first person I would go to. It's an odd thing to me that they haven't gone to Wendi, but they didn't, nor does anyone in this chain go to Wendi, which really is pretty important, because it means if Wendi is charged, her counsel has an argument. Look, they walled her off from this. Why do you think that was? It's because she was never involved. They did it on their own. That's what her counsel will argue. And they've got some ammunition with this right here. So finally, Charlie actually does call the undercover person, the person posing as the gang member and leaving this note. And he says he's trying to figure out who this is. And the man says, well, my brother Tato was not taken care of. I met him in Broward prison. And then Charlie calls Katie 3 times to tell her all about this conversation, and tells her, about this call, about Broward and the connection. And here's the thing. By now, Katie knows, Sigfredo knows, that Luis Rivera is actually in Broward prison. So they've got to be thinking, could there be a connection? So Sigfredo suggested calling the cops. A pretty logical suggestion, which several people have mentioned so far, but absolutely no one does at any point, even after the tap and the bump. So Katie calls Sigfredo, says, I want you to call. Will you call? Use a friend's phone. Don't use your own phone. And Sigfredo tells her he called and got a message, and there was a hang up. And there was, in fact, a hang up at one point. So Katie calls Charlie. He tells her again. They talk about going to the police. No one goes to the police. Sigfredo tells Katie he called 3 times. That is false, said the witness, said Sanford. Charlie calls Donna, says nothing new, that he's going to tell her when they are in person. And he is 99% sure that basically that he thinks it's the police. in which case he believes there's no threat at all. There's absolutely no problem. And Charlie says, and what's so ironic is Charlie really gets what's going on. I mean, Charlie says things like, I think they're just stirring the pot. That's what stirring the bottom of the pot and stuff is coming up. They're seeing if roaches will come out, if they just do something to make us talk. All we have to do is not talk. They don't have anything, and they're trying to make us give them something. And he's right. And he talks anyway. He says all kinds of really incriminating, damning stuff. Is it specific? He seems to believe that if there's not an eyewitness to a crime, if someone doesn't say, I did it, I did it, I did it, then it didn't happen. He really seems to think that, and doesn't seem to understand how much ammunition he's giving them. So in this period of time, he also talks to Katie about a birthday gift he's purchasing for Sigfredo. It sounded to me like it was a concert ticket and a limo ride, but it was not entirely clear. The prosecution seemed to imply that was a gift he gave to Katie, but Katie seems pretty pleased with the idea, with what he was giving Sigfredo, and she then says, suggests, well, it's my birthday and it's your godchild's birthday, so suggesting that her child was the godchild of Charlie. Then there is bump number 4. They're still going for more. And this one is a text to Donna's cell phone at 2:09 a.m. So you don't take me serious. If you think what Katie's baby daddy did won't come back, you're crazy. Katie's baby daddy is, in fact, Sigfredo, who, in fact, was one of the 2 hitmen. This is really specific knowledge. And yet, no one seems to really get upset that law enforcement seems to know this. So we've got the usual. Charlie and Donna talk, and she says, I've got more to say to you. It's not going to be on the phone. They meet outside. They go to the pool area. Harvey is with them, I believe, this time. And Katie, and so Charlie at some point talks to, in fact, even before they talk, Katie tells Garcia, look, Charlie's going to go see his parents. Something's up. Something's happening. And Charlie and Katie talk. He says, I'm going to call you from a landline. And then, in fact, Charlie and Donna and Harvey met, and the FBI was not able to record it because they met out by the pool. They couldn't, it was inside a building that was closed off, so they couldn't get in there. So Charlie tells Katie, look, that text, Katie's baby daddy, that's really specific. And several times Katie says, well, I'm really worried. They seem to know a lot about me personally. They're using my name in this. And Charlie says to Donna, their plan is now Donna is going to call the number. And she even downloads an app onto her phone so she can record what happens. And she says all of the things that probably other people should have said up until now and haven't. She says, you approached me on the road with an article about my ex-son-in-law. I don't understand what you're talking about. This threatening letter, this threatening text. I mean, I am taking you seriously. I've spoken, she says, to 10 to 12 friends, asking them what I should do about this. She says, I don't know your friend. I don't know what this is. He says, you know exactly what this is. She says, yeah, if you think you know something, go get the reward. If you think you know who did this. And he says, all we're asking for is $5,000. She's like, the reward is $100,000. Go get that. And he says, everybody knows what's going on. This is the undercover cop posing as a gang member. And she says, I lost my ex-son-in-law. I didn't have anything to do with it. It's not me. And he tells her this is not going away. And she says, I don't know who Tato is. He says, you don't know Tato. Maybe you don't know Tato, but you know Katie, and you know who Katie is. And Donna says, go get that $100,000. It's not me. You got the wrong person. If you want the money, go get the $100,000 reward for finding the person who killed Dan Markel. And I can't do this. It's making me sick. I don't know what you're talking about. And the man says, Tato told me everything. She says, get the money from the police, do it. I know it isn't me, and I can't take this level of stress. I didn't do anything. She says, I'll call back, which she does not. And she doesn't call the police. So Donna, of course, talks to Charlie some on the phone, and they talk in code this time about a patient. I also forgot a Yelp review was a code at one point. Multiple codes. Maybe they should write codes because they are really creative. And so they talk about a patient, and she tells them she downloaded an app and what the patient had to say, and says the guy was not nice. So Charlie talks to Katie, and this time he says he is 100% sure it's a pot-bellied Vietnamese pig, which the state believes. And if you listen to the call long enough, it does become clear he's talking about the police. And Katie says, that's not good. And Charlie says, right. But that isn't what Charlie really thinks, because he calls Donna then and he says it's 1,000% now, not just 100,000%, that it's the police, and they are so relieved. And it's clear from the code he means the police, and they just seem so relieved, like, oh, good. So they're just fishing. It's just the police, and they don't seem at all worried about that. They don't seem worried that they've actually pinpointed one of the hitmen. Maybe, do they know for sure? Probably, because Charlie is giving gifts to Sigfredo, so probably. But from that point, about that point, the checks to Katie stop. And at that point, the law enforcement goes over to try to get Katie's employment records, because she's been getting these checks from the Adelson Institute. But what they find is no evidence that she actually worked there. So they're asking at the office for Katie's records. And what the employee goes back and calls Charlie. And Charlie says to them, look, it's not my office. Tell them I can't answer the question, that they have to ask my dad for permission. And also, you don't know where it is, so just don't give them anything. And Katie, now, of course, Katie has admitted that she didn't work there. So there you have it. And exhausting, long day, but it was so interesting. If you were to pick one day to watch back, watch the entire day today. Watch our video from today, because it was unbelievable. It was just, honestly, it was wildly entertaining, these phone calls between all of the alleged co-conspirators, because their conversations are just crazy. And the codes and all that Charlie does when he talks to Katie is just absolutely wild. I had to do a lot of making sure that certain words weren't in there. Occasionally I would be reading and I would say it anyway. But anyway, I was trying very hard to keep that out. Some phone calls, it was really difficult to do. This trial is hotter and hotter and hotter. If you are not watching it all day, please come watch with us. It's been really a fascinating event. I'm enjoying sharing this with you. We're going gavel to gavel coverage. We are going to be live starting first thing in the morning, and we'll be live all day. We would love to have you join us. If you would please hit the like button for this video and subscribe, we would love to have you back for more.